Hi, my name is Benjamin Chia, and I'm a postdoc at Stanford University, presenting research I conducted while as a PhD candidate at the University of Washington, Seattle, with my colleagues Alana Olson, Jane Everson, and Professor Amy Ko. So we want to investigate how instructors in higher education universities could equitably support students in large remote courses. So in universities in the United States, teaching teams from large introductory computing courses typically consist of a single instructor and a team of a few dozen student teaching assistants, or TAs, and they have the responsibility of teaching anywhere from 150 to 650 students. So if this small teaching team wants to equitably support students, they would need to know what challenges students of minoritized groups faced, and the challenge of understanding this is even greater in a remote context. So for example, when 1 in 4 students are women or non-binary, and they risk potential stigmatization if they speak up for themselves, how can a teaching team know that the coursework is difficult because some women students' familial responsibilities at home compete for their time? Or when 1 in 10 students are African, Black, Hispanic, Latinx, Native American, Indigenous, or Pacific Islander, how is the teaching team supposed to know that some of them are having trouble getting the help that they need to understand how code works because of the remote structure of the course? Or when 1 in 4 students transferred from another university, how is the teaching team supposed to know that some transfer students took the prerequisite coursework over 2 years ago and need to relearn some concepts, whereas the vast majority of students took the prerequisite course last term? Put simply, students of minoritized groups face challenges that students of dominant groups don't necessarily face, and leaving these needs unmet and unknown is a major contributing factor to inequities in the classes. Without further context, teaching teams often have to make assumptions about what students need based on their prior experience or what they know about students, information that's often biased towards those privileged enough to speak up and get noticed. So this work explores how to inform teaching teams of the needs of minoritized groups, while also ensuring their privacy and well-being. So the key idea here is context. So challenges students face don't occur in a vacuum. The students are unique human beings facing these challenges in a unique context. So we want to figure out how to provide context while protecting students. Students shouldn't have to risk potential stigmatization just to advocate for themselves. So to support equitable student feedback, we designed StudentAmp to provide contextualized, scalable, privacy-protecting student feedback. So from the student end, here's what StudentAmp looks like. It first asks, what's the biggest challenge in your life getting in the way of the class? After that, it asks about demographic information that ranges from gender and ethnicity to disabilities to their work, whether or not they're working part-time or full-time or searching for a job, to their familial language, to their prior knowledge in programming. And the main thing here is we want to use demographic information so teaching teams could consider an intersectional perspective on who students are to support more multidimensional perspective taking as opposed to the reductive, harmful stereotyping. Next, we ask students to look at pairs of challenges that their peers reported and determine which challenge they thought was more disruptive. We aggregated these pairwise comparisons into a disrupt score that was shown to instructors. So here's what an instructor would see after students shared feedback using StudentAmp. So they'd see the results, and each challenge would have be contextualized by demographics of the student as well as the disrupt score. So in this first challenge, a student with a minor mental disability searching for a job and working part-time reported struggling with mental health issues while balancing work and school. Members of the teaching team could then label challenges and then use these labels as filters to see how certain types of challenges disproportionately affected certain groups. So in this example, mental health issues disproportionately affected BIPOC students and students with moderate or severe physical, mental, or social disabilities. And then members of the teaching teams could then share notes. So we use StudentAmp to investigate 3 research questions. What challenges do students report? How do students perceive the values and risks of sharing challenges, demographic data, and seeing their peers' challenges? And how do teaching teams of large computing courses use all this information to support equity-oriented action? We conducted a study at a large research university in an urban tech-rich environment with 5 large computing courses, all of which were taught remotely and involved, again, 150 to 650 students in each course. The data we collected was from StudentAmp. We collected, analyzed data about challenges students reported, demographic data of students, as well as feedback students shared on their peers' challenges. And then we also conducted interviews with students of minoritized groups and group interviews with all 5 teaching teams. So we conducted a thematic analysis to group the 810 challenges students reported on StudentAmp into 17 themes. The first group of themes relate to course-related feedbacks. These are things very closely related to the course. For example, related to remote learning, a first-generation student reported that the lack of structure with online classes was making learning difficult. There were also themes related to things that were external to the course. So this could include academic life, non-academic life, like familial or job commitments, and environment or broader context. So for example, related to home and family, a BIPOC first-generation woman reported that having to take care for her sister while her father was away was competing for her time for learning. Another theme was related to well-being. So this is health, physical and mental health while being isolated, and struggles with self-regulation. For example, related to mental health, an Asian woman with mental and physical disabilities who was first generation and spoke a non-English familial language reported depression and anxiety related to everyday pressure. So combined, we can say that students shared challenges beyond the immediate scope of the course. Next, we want to investigate how students perceive this sharing. So here's some common themes that we found. One was that challenges beyond the scope of the class were worth sharing. So there was a BIPOC first-generation woman who considered school as one of her many bubbles. So she thought she wanted her instructors and TAs to understand that school is one of her bubbles, and there were other bubbles in her life that interacted with her school bubble. Another thing was that demographic information was often seen as an asset. So one student reported how a good instructor should understand societal and structural injustices and how they may privilege certain students of certain demographic groups. And finally, another student reported that seeing peers' challenges that were similar to their own made them feel less isolated because they were not the only one facing that challenge right now, and that supported a sense of belonging. Moving on to how teaching teams interpreted contextualized feedback. Teaching teams were able to consider the challenges contextualized with demographics. Here's an example of a discussion that a teaching team had. So in this challenge, a woman who's a transfer student with a severe mental disability reported, "I'm unsure of my ability to train my brain to think this way." And TA considered the challenge relative to her own experiences taking and teaching the course, recognizing that it's normal to struggle a little bit because the course is very fast-paced. And then a professor, drawing upon their cultural competency from research in inclusive computing education, considered multiple dimensions of the students' demographics, considered how they were a transfer student, so they may be less familiar with the university, and how they had a severe mental disability, which can affect learning in a multitude of ways. So put together, there's just a small example of how prior knowledge and cultural competence helped teaching teams interpret student feedback. So to conclude, I'll just say that this is really exploring how members of teaching teams can't assume all students are the same, or that all students are from a dominant group. StudentAmp was an exploration on how we can provide context about students while also ensuring their well-being. This paper is available at benjishia.com/CSCW22.